So I just switched from telescope.lua to fzf-lua, and I just had like a whole workday with it, coding and all. And I guess I want to show you guys how I set up my fzf-lua so that it matches telescope most, while also, making it faster and more efficient. Right, so let's get started. So I got my 3 bullet points here that I have to cover. And so firstly, so everything from in the setup file, I just copied from FZF's website. So everything you see here are the default options, except for a few. So in this border right here for window options, I think I changed this. I don't remember the default value, but I always use rounded because I like round borders. And everything else should be the default except for in preview, where in preview and in the window options of the preview, I turned on sign column, I turned off cursor column, and turn on numbers. I think this number is on by default. Disable relative numbers, and everything else should be the default because the default is really good. Okay, so for key maps, everything in built-in is the default option, and everything in FZF is also default except for one. So for this one, I added Control Q as a key map for select all plus accept. So basically, if you remember in Telescope, you can do Telescope, search for something, and then do Control Q, and then it will send all search results down to quick fix list. So this Control Q right here basically tells FZF to do the same thing. So like right here, if I can search for like a reference or something. Okay, so search for all reference of this function right here, right? And then with the key map Control Q, I can do Control Q, and everything should be down to the quick fix list. And then I can navigate everything using the quick fix list instead of using FZF for navigation, because I'm more comfortable with quick fix. That's the only option I add in there. With the actions here should all be default. I don't think I touch anything here. Yeah, they are all defaults. So the last thing I changed is in the files picker. I think that's how you call it in FZF pickers. In the files picker, I turn on get icons because I like to see the icons, and for the actual command arguments so these are commands that FZF is going to use to search for the files, right? So you got the OG find, you got the new ripgrep, you got FD, the fancier version of find, and dir. It's all classic. So let me just pull up the defaults so that we can see it better. So actions, not actions, files. Picker options here. So for files, right, the default somewhere down here for files, the default, they include a section to not search for the .git folder, and I just removed that option because I actually need to search for a .git folder. And you might be wondering, well, why the hell am I searching for the .git folder? Isn't that like, files for Git to manage? Why would you manually manage that? And the only use case I have for it is, for example, I want to ignore something, right? I want to remove something out of version control, and I don't want to touch the .git ignore file for many reasons, right? Say you're working on an open source project, and the .git ignore is managed by the core maintainers. So everything's set up. You only pull the repository down, and 99% of the time you don't want to touch the ignore file because that's going to affect everyone. So I leave that alone, and what I do is I would search for the pf.git/info/exclude file right here. open a new tab, and whatever you put in the exclude file basically acts the same as you would as when they are put in git ignore. The only difference is that this one's local to you and to this machine only, so it's not shared with anyone, not in version control, only with you. Okay, so those are the options I changed. The hidden and the no ignore here is for, so the hidden option, if you set it to true, then it will find hidden files by default, and if you do no ignore to true, it will not respect git ignore by default. And these options are really inconsequential, because you can always toggle it with alt I for toggle ignore and alt H for toggle hidden. So leader PF, search for everything, right? Because they have hidden and no ignore by default. You're going to see hidden files and files that are ignored by git ignore, and 363 results, right? If I do alt I turn off the no ignore, and now I'm respecting git ignore. So everything inside the .git folder and everything else inside the .git ignore on the right here should be ignored. Alt and here you can see the hidden files right here. The .github key, yeah, I can't show them because they're my keys, but you can also do alt H and you wouldn't find the hidden files anymore, because hidden files are files that starts with a dot. So yeah, that's it. And if we come down to the key map here, my philosophy when switching is I want to retain the most amount of key maps that I'm familiar with, while also adding key maps that weren't possible before, because Telescope is usually slow, or at least slower than FZF. So you have the classic, the file search, so leader PF for search files, and you have leader SB for search buffer and leader SQ for search quick fix. These are also classic. And I think a really neat use case with leader SB right here is, for example, you're in an open source project, right? And you're going to definitions multiple times, like going to the original caller of a function or whatever, right? You're GDing multiple times and you just get lost, and you want to get back to intermediate files that you went through before, but you don't remember their names because you went through so many, right? You can do leader SB and it will show all the buffers that you've opened, and you can look for here for files that you've went through in your search and get them back up. That's a really neat case I have for searching buffers. For quick fixes, kind of the same, not the same story, but kind of the same use case where it helps in speeding up my native workflow. So if I do leader SR here for searching all references, and then I control Q, add them to quick fix, I can search for the quick fix, using the classic C next and C prev, or I can do leader search quick fix, so leader SQ, and look for and have a fuzzy find inside the quick fix itself. So if I do fzf-lua, right, I can see all the options in fzf-lua without having to look for that inside quick fix manually. That's what I mean, or linearly. All right, so those are the two classics. This one is also a classic, LSP references, right? So leader SR for LSP references, and yeah, like we've used multiple times in this video, it's just going to open a list of references for that function. And normally in Telescope, I don't know if it's on my setup or whatever, this function takes a while, so I don't even really use it that often. But on here, I use it a lot. And that is really weird, because from what I can tell, they are all built on top of the native GRR, right? GRR for search references. But Telescope is just slower on my machine somehow. Like, I truly don't know why, but that's just the case. and I avoid using them when I was using Telescope. Now I'm using them a lot, so and it's a really useful function. Alright, so leader SS for document symbols and leader ST for trace header. I think these one are also classics that you should know. Leader SW, so those are file searches, right? These are now word searches. So leader SW pops up a word search for inside this buffer, so I can search for like order or whatever. I can also do Control G for regex searching, and leader capital W is the same thing but for the whole workspace. That's how I like to split my key maps. So normal is inside the current buffer, and capitalized is for the whole workspace. Same story with with live grep and live grep inside current buffer, so same thing. Finally, we got the diagnostics right here for leader DI for diagnostics and leader D capital I for diagnostics from the whole workspace. So it's making an error, for example. I can do leader DI and we'll pop everything up. I can do Control Q to put them all into quick fix, and I can navigate through it, shift them with CNext or cprev. And to preview a diagnostics on a certain line, you can do Control W, Control D. It'll do like a small pop-up window where you can look for what's wrong with the current line without having to, read the quick fix list. Yeah. Okay, that's I'm recording. Okay, let's delete this line too. Close the quick fix. And the final few key maps are, so I have Control X, Control P in insert mode for file searching. And if I do like a random path, for example, enter, that's just gonna insert it before my cursor. And finally, I have, so this one's a completely new fzf-lua function, and that's fzf-lua resume. It basically resumes your previous search. So one use case I have for this is with leader SR, so reference search, right? So if I do leader SR here, I can see all of this, right? And rather than putting them into quick fix, I can just look at them individually and then quit out, do some changes on that certain instance, do leader FR, get back up here again without having to type the whole thing, and continue with my searches. And I think that's pretty neat. Alright, so that's basically it for my fzf-lua setup. Let me know if you guys want to see how I use this in navigating an actual open source project, because I haven't showed much in this video. And I guess that's it. I'll catch you guys later.